This dish is rich in flavor and history. Its origins come from Brazil and Africa, but now can be found in the country of India with a touch of Portugal. It's truly a dish that crosses the world. This pork stew is made for large gatherings, so it's obvious it will be prepared for the Christmas feast. We're exploring the history and origins of Sorpotel. I'm your host, Glenn Warren, and welcome to another serving of Seasons Eatings, the podcast which explores the history and origins of your favorite Christmas foods. Seasons Eatings can be found wherever you download your favorite podcasts. And if you haven't already, I would ask you to subscribe. That way you won't miss an episode when it's released, and all future episodes will be available without you having to search for them. If you can please take a minute and leave me a 5-star review, I would greatly appreciate it. Reviews help others find the podcast and help me know you're enjoying what I'm doing. And if you let me know you've left a review, I'll send you a Seasons Eatings sticker as a personal thank you. Seasons Eatings is also found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. All the links can be found in the show notes, which can be found on seasonseatingspodcast.com. And while you're there, you can buy me an eggnog. Just click on the little cup at the top of the page and leave a donation for as little as $3. Each donation is used for the running of the podcast and its general upkeep, so any help would be appreciated. And finally, you can let me know how I'm doing, leave a suggestion for a future episode, or just say hello at seasonseatingspodcast@gmail.com. Goa is a state on the southwestern coast of India, within the Konkan region. Goa is visited by a large number of international and domestic tourists each year because of its white sand beaches, active nightlife, places of worship, and World Heritage listed architecture. It also has rich flora and fauna because it lies very close to the northwestern Ghats rainforest, one of the rare biodiversity hotspots of the world. Christmas in Goa is a captivating tapestry woven with the vibrant threads of both Indian and Portuguese traditions, creating a celebration that is as unique as the state itself. Nestled on the sun-kissed shores of the Arabian Sea, Goa's cultural landscape reflects a fascinating amalgamation of its colonial past and indigenous roots. The Portuguese influence on Christmas celebrations in Goa is deeply rooted in the region's colonial history. With the arrival of Portuguese explorers in the early 16th century, Christianity was introduced, becoming an integral part of Goan identity. The Christmas celebration in Goa is not merely a religious affair. It's a joyous symphony of diverse influences that shape the state's unique identity. From the iconic Midnight Mass, where churches blend Konkani and Portuguese elements seamlessly, to the rhythmic beats of traditional Goan folk dances echoing through the coastal villages. The Christmas season is a testament to the harmonious coexistence of different cultures. Christmas celebrations in Goa are synonymous with a delectable blend of Portuguese and local flavors, creating a unique culinary experience. In Goa, the novena holds a central place in the Christian religious calendar, representing a 9-day period of devout observance leading up to a significant feast. This solemn tradition involves daily church services characterized by prayers, hymns, and liturgical rituals dedicated to a particular saint or religious figure. The novena serves as a spiritual preparation for the impending feast, fostering a sense of unity among the faithful as they collectively engage in reflection, meditation, and communal worship. At the end of the novena, there's usually a feast prepared. Now, this would be traditionally on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day if you're after midnight. And one of the many dishes that are prepared is Sorpotel. Now, Sorpotel is not an everyday dish. It's a dish of Portuguese origin now commonly cooked in Konkan, primarily Goa, Mangalore, and Bombay, the erstwhile Estado da India Portuguese colony. It is also prepared in northeastern Brazil. The bracingly acidic Goan curry of pork offal punctures big occasions and announces sacraments like weddings, christenings, as well as Christmas and Easter. In the old country, the initial step for a dish so momentous like this was a brutal one. You first kill a pig. The name Sorpotel translates literally to mishmash or confusion. Fittingly, the dish's origins are confusing and contentious. Some believe it's a version of a lamb dish made in Castelo de Vide in Alentejo, Portugal, while others, like Mumbai-based food writer Antoine Lewis, contend the dish is a version of sarrabulo, a stew of minced pork cooked in pig's blood, from the northern Portuguese province of Minho. African slaves in the Bahia province of Brazil, who were given the offal and less delicate pork cuts, transformed the dish into Sorpotel by adding onions, tomatoes, and chili peppers, writes Lewis in an essay in the book Reflected in Water, Writings on Goa. This new dish found flavor with the Portuguese, who carried it to Goa, where, impregnated with Indian spices, it was transformed into Sorpotel. The Portuguese found it hard to relinquish Goa, hanging on to it for over 450 years, until even the British thought they should hand it back. It wasn't until 1961, 14 years after partition, that India, now impatient, invaded Goa and annexed it, turning it into one of the last puzzle pieces in the creation of the modern Indian state. What the Portuguese never relinquished was the influence on Goa's culture, particularly its food. Along with Catholicism, they brought a love of pork and wine vinegar to remind them of home. The Goans adapted the latter into their own coconut vinegar, made by fermenting toddy, or the sap of palm tree flowers. The vinegar is vital to Sorpotel, not just for its taste, but also for prolonging its life, improving it each day as it marinates. Just as crucially, Portugal imported culinary influences from other colonies. Chilies from South America to add spice to curries, cashews from the New World to make fenhi, Goa's beloved moonshine, and cooking techniques from Brazil and Mozambique. In her essay, Mapping the Cultural Geography of Goan Gastronomy, the academic Supriya Rochuteri challenges the narrative of Portuguese dominance, focusing instead on the overlooked role its colonies had on the diversity of Goan cuisine. According to the academic, the Goan dish popularly known as kafriel chicken, grilled chicken marinated in coriander, chilies, cinnamon, garlic, and lime juice, is believed to have its roots in the Mozambican galinha piri-piri. And similarly, Sorpotel, a popular Goan pork curry, is said to have evolved from the Sorpotel dish devised by the African slave community in Brazil. The arrival of the Portuguese in India brought about a fusion of culinary cultures. They introduced new ingredients, cooking techniques, and flavors that blended seamlessly with the existing Indian culinary landscape. The Portuguese brought with them a rich culinary heritage that was influenced by their exploration of the world, including their conquests in Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Because Sorpotel literally means confusion, it usually refers to the mishmash of ingredients, which include pork meat and offal, which is, in layman's terms, the innards of the animal, which include the heart, liver, tongue, and even pork blood. However, a modern day version, blood is rarely used, as it's now getting pure blood is slightly harder to get. The meat is first parboiled, then diced and sautéed before being cooked in a spicy and vinegary sauce. And the flavorings and spices actually differ from region to region. For example, some use more vinegar, and the size of the pieces also varies, as does the cooking technique. Some sauté the meat prior to cooking it in the sauce, while others add the diced parboiled meat directly to the sauce. Made by African slaves in Brazil, the dish had the tail, ear, intestines, tongue, and the hint of blood. It was a filling, rich ode to offal. The pork-loving Portuguese got it to India. What came to India was the version popular from the Alentejo region of Portugal, to which the native Goan Christians and East Indians add their own tricks to make it even more interesting. And this is what variety is available today. When the Portuguese traders took liking to this slightly sour yet spicy, thick gravy-based pork dish in Brazil, they rarely thought what went into it, rather than its very filling and a rich dish. It was only later, when they decided to take the dish along, did they realize what actually went into this curry. For many in the North American palate, including innards is probably not that appetizing for some. But I grew up eating liver, mostly chicken livers, but also tongue, cow tongue. So trying this dish wouldn't faze me much. Most think it's gross, but it isn't really. It's a fine dish that lasted long, and for sailors those days, that meant more than how or what it was made with. In fact, the maturing taste, the Sorpotel, is much like a mutton curry, that is a male lamb, and it gets better as it gets older. And it came as an added bonus as the pork-loving Portuguese got it to India. One of the main ingredients in Sorpotel is vinegar, and sometimes it's called toddy vinegar. So, toddy vinegar is a vinegar obtained through the natural fermentation of coconut palm sap and liver to it, and introduced the technique of frying the pieces in ghee or fat or clarified butter, and later added tamarind to it. And tamarind is it's a fruit, but it's almost like a combination fig sort of spicy fruit. Wine and wine vinegar are an integral part of Portuguese cuisine. But when the Portuguese arrived in Goa in 1510, they found that the Indians there didn't make vinegar. In her book, Cocina de Goa, History and Tradition of Goan Food, Dr. Fatima de Silva Gracias writes that it was the Portuguese Franciscan priests who first made vinegar from coconut toddy to substitute for the missing wine vinegar. In her book, Penguin Food Guide of India, Charmaine O'Brien concurs. Vinegar is used extensively in Goan Catholic cooking. Initially, it was a substitute for the wine used in Portuguese cooking, she writes. Goa's climate was not conducive to growing grapes, or wine in European-style grape vinegar couldn't be made, so alcoholic coconut toddy was used instead of a base for vinegar. We'll find out about a major ingredient in Sorpotel after the break. If you're like me, you have fond memories of Christmases past. when you settled in with your family to watch cherished Christmas classics like Rudolph, Frosty, or maybe you remember trekking to the theater to see big holiday releases like A Christmas Story, Home Alone, and my personal favorite, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I hope you'll rediscover a piece of that innocence while shopping at retrofestive.ca. While you're here, why not pick up some gifts for your loved ones? We're always posting new items, so be sure to check back often. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. From leg lamps to moose mugs, puzzles and pop culture, Retro Festive is your one-stop online shop for all your holiday gifts. Visit retrofestive.ca and be like Uncle Eddie and get something for you. Something really nice.
97, 98, 99. I knew there was a sprinkle missing from that cookie. Oh, hi! I'm Sprinkle, one of the elves in the kitchen at the North Pole. I'm in charge of, well, you guessed it, making sure there's 100 sprinkles on each of Mrs. Claus's cookies. There's so much stuff going on here at the North Pole that sometimes I can't keep track. That's why I go to SantaUpdate.com. SantaUpdate.com is a website which gives you all the news about us elves, the reindeer, Mrs. Claus, and of course Santa, all through the year. There's news, a post office where you can email Santa, lots of great activities, and you can even chat with one of the elves or the big guy himself. We even broadcast Santa's journey around the world on Christmas Eve. And everything is completely free. So head on over to SantaUpdate.com and join in the fun. Just make sure you have permission from an adult you trust. I hope to see you soon on SantaUpdate.com. I gotta run. That's my next batch of cookies.
So toddy vinegar is actually fermented in stone or earthen pots called colso and are never rinsed between batches. This fermentation process uses wild yeast, and the micropores in the stone absorb the yeast so the culture is always there, ready to interact with the liquid stored in it. Says Hansel Vaz, who's the owner of Cazulo Premium Feni, an alcoholic beverage that is also made from toddy. The taste of the vinegar changes from place to place because of the wild yeast culture. A few days to actually 2 weeks into the fermentation process, the vinegar maker drops a blackened red mud tile called the blackened cacon, burned coconut husk, or roasted rice into the brewing vinegar to introduce beneficial bacteria and add color. They then seal the pot with a cloth or wet clay and leave it untouched for approximately 2 months. The finished toddy vinegar is then transferred to jars and bottles, ready to make its mark in Goan kitchens. Acidity is an important element in Goan cuisine. Goan Catholics use toddy vinegar, while other residents of the state more often employ kokum, tamarind, or bilimbi, which is a tree sorrel, or ambade, a hog plum. The Portuguese taught us how to use toddy vinegar, says Dr. Gracias. It is particularly important for pork dishes and beef dishes. Goan Catholics use it in almost all their dishes that require a souring agent. It lasts longer, gives a nice sour flavor to the dish, and acts as a preservative, says Chef Vasquito Alvarez, who runs a catering company called Vasquito's Kitchen and is the managing chef of Elevar, a restaurant in Goa. Toddy vinegar is essential to proper vindaloo, a sweet and sour hot pork curry made with chilies that is Goa's most famous dish outside the state. But this sour elixir is also a key ingredient in chicken zakuti, chicken cooked in a roasted coconut and spices. Within Goa, though, Sorpotel is the star dish, and the one where toddy vinegar makes the most impact. The true Goan toddy vinegar has a distinct taste. It's slightly milder than apple cider vinegar, but with a sharp acidic bite and faint hints of sweetness. The best bottles carry a raw, slightly sweet fragrance and none of the pungent chemical smells associated with processed vinegars. Red wine vinegar or apple cider vinegar can be used as a substitute in a pinch, but purists know the difference. Such was the rise in the popularity of the dish after that, even with the Portuguese who settled in India, that sorpotel that was devised by the African cooks to feed an army of workers became a celebratory must. So much so that today any holiday feast is incomplete without the presence of this dish. And why is it such a significant dish? The beautiful taste aside, it is one of the most exotic dishes made of liver, and of course has blood, which has been a prized exotic ingredient in Portugal cooking. The last days of a Goan's pig's life are ignominious. Beatedly watched until girthy enough around the belly, then it's slung upside down on a motorbike, tail tied to snout, to be taken to the butcher. When a pig was slaughtered in the old days, women would catch the blood in a bowl, not simply for cleanliness, but to later thicken the complex stew. No part of the animal would go to waste. Buckets of bloody viscera would be cleaned and sorted, and what meat wasn't used for sour rosary beet like Goa sausage could be saved for sorpotel. This was nose to tail, long before Fergus Henderson got to it. A fact of life other than a manifesto. While many Goans now make sorpotel only with pork, there are versions with liver, tripe, intestines, kidneys, and pig's ear, albeit not all at the same time, all of which add their own unique funk and texture. Most Goans now make sorpotel without the blood, and some even without the offal. Savio Azevedo, the owner of Old Goa, a Goan restaurant in South London, makes his without the liver for the benefit of his non-Goan clientele. But he'll still prepare some with liver on request for members of the Goan diaspora who miss it. He makes it from scratch every Monday when the restaurant is closed, from hard-to-source toddy vinegar, fenny, which is a cashew liquor, and jaggery imported from Goa. This is soul food, he says. You can't cheat on ingredients. The Indian version of sorpotel uses pork liver, heart, and blood along with the offal. This makes the dish full of ample amounts of fat, which is vital for blending the flavors. Moreover, the presence of red chilies doesn't make the sorpotel overly spicy. In fact, it adds to the distinct flavor of the curry. Some households also prefer adding a small amount of alcohol to the recipe. The method for cooking the dish remains mostly the same, where the meat is parboiled and then chopped into tiny pieces and fried in its own fat. Then the masala or sauce is prepared and the meat is added and allowed to soak in the spices. The best part of the dish is that it can be cooked many days in advance, and the curry only tastes better with every passing day. It can be easily cooked with ingredients found within the space of the Indian kitchen. Today, sorpotel is a must-have for all major festivals in Goa. In Goa and Mangalore, sorpotel is often accompanied by sana, a spongy, white, and slightly sweet steamed rice and coconut bread. Or it also can be enjoyed with pao, on cooked rice, or in a bun as a sandwich. And beyond religious and culinary aspects, the social customs associated with Christmas in Goa also bear the unmistakable stamp of Portuguese influence. Family gatherings, gift exchange, and strong sense of community during the festive season mirror the familiar and communal values introduced by the Portuguese. In essence, the Portuguese influence on Christmas in Goa is a rich tapestry that weaves together religious practices, architecture, culinary delights, and social traditions, creating a unique and enduring cultural celebration. Christmas in Goa transcends into a unique cultural celebration, inviting everyone to share in its warmth and partake in the enchanting beauty of this coastal region's festivities, all over a bowl of steaming Sorpotel. I'm your host, Glenn Warren, and thank you for listening to this serving of Seasons Eatings. Seasons Eatings is available wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And please, if you can leave a review about the show so we can spread the Christmas cheer. And also, I would love to hear from you. Send me an email at seasonseatingspodcast@gmail.com to let me know how you like the show, suggestions for future episodes, or even just to say hi. If you let me know you've left a review, I'll send you a Seasons Eating sticker for your trouble, as well as my unwavering gratitude. And if you're feeling extra generous this season, you can buy me an eggnog. Head on over to seasonseatingspodcast.com and click on the little cup in the corner. Each small donation helps with the daily running of the podcast and is greatly appreciated. All music for Seasons Eatings is used under the Creative Commons license.